What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. And we're now a couple weeks into January as you're listening. But for us in the studio here, real time, we have 2 days left. It's December 30th, Monday. So we got 2 days left in 2024, kicking off into the new year. So you're already there. You guys are in the future listening to us. How's it going so far? Are you hitting your goals? Are you on path? Are you clear? Are you clear about what is going on in 2025? 2024 has been a pretty cool year. That's also been a year of a lot of difficulties and whatnot, but kind of looking back at some of the cool things. We launched a coffee. We launched Lion's Breath within this year, and it's been a really cool venture. It's one of those easy things. People get excited about it, and it's cool when we get to light people up and they get to enjoy something that we enjoy so much. I have to admit, it's really cool drinking my own coffee brand throughout the every day. Like I've got my own coffee. At Christmas time, we handed out coffee gifts. Actually, Adam in the studio here bought his wife a bag of coffee, and he messaged me yesterday or a couple days ago and said it was his wife's favorite gift over Christmas. So to be able to do that, that's kind of cool. Something that came here out of the studio and just some collaboration and talking, and then partnering with a really cool vendor based out of Goodrich. And so that's been awesome. Helping people get the content out there from being on the show, that's really taken off this year. And we've had guests that have put their content out and hit almost 1 million viewers on their clips, which is super awesome. So that's just one clip. So it's been out there. It's really cool. It's cool to see the content getting out there. We've had some awesome guests, which is what makes up the show. And we have an awesome guest, another difference maker in the studio here. So we have Kelly Hogan. She is the founder of Champ Therapy and Wellness. And I've had a chance to get to know Kelly really well over the last few weeks, and she is, of course, in my SiriusNet group. Would really be remiss to not give a shout out to SiriusNet. Steve gets one per episode, I believe. So, but awesome organization to meet some really cool people, and Kelly and I have been able to talk, and then she also really, and it's cool how difference makers, it's that small world. Kelly knows Christine Reyes, who was on a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, actually. So cool how people are connected. So Kelly, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and a little nervous. I've never been on a podcast.
I love it. I'll ask you at the end how it feels
right.
at the end.
I have to get your coffee too. I keep forgetting. I was like, I need that.
Oh yeah.
As a mom of a 1-year-old, I drink coffee all day long.
Especially, we're entrepreneurs. We're parents,
right.
We need the coffee.
Right. It's essential.
It's essential. And so it's like kicking off the day on the right foot. It's when we had that episode with Dylan, Dylan England is his name. And he was like another podcaster. And he's like, oh man, I got this coffee, this podcast brew. And I'm like, I have a podcast called Coffee and Grit. And I never thought about coming out with a coffee. Like, right. That's genius. That's genius.
Is.
So
there you go.
It's really cool though. Is it's like, it's that a lot of times it's like that whole theme of this show is there's no scarcity. There's only scarcity mindset if you let it happen. In the sense of like, I don't look at people as in competition. I look at it as like, what ways can we collaborate? And Dylan was introduced to me by a former client of mine that was like, hey, he's out doing a podcast kind of similar to yours. I thought you two would connect really well. And when we first connected, he was like, he didn't know if I would be really receptive to opening up. And it was like, man, we're all doing the same things. Let's continue building this relationship and bounce ideas off of each other. And then it ended up, we were both on each other's show. And
awesome.
It's cool because you can really learn and grow from people that are out there doing other things. They're doing things like you.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity. But yeah, I'm the owner of Champ Therapy and Wellness. I started about 3 years ago, but kind of dabbled in it while still working full time. And then this past probably 6 months, I've really dived into it, trying to make it a full-time thing. But we do physical therapy, occupational therapy, and personal training in the home or virtually. We did have a gym space. Actually, since I've talked to you last, we kind of let that go. So I don't have a physical space right now. But ever since COVID, a lot of people just like the comfort of their own house or their work, or I can meet you wherever you want me to meet you, basically, for therapy or training.
That's awesome. I love, too, how you combine the therapy like it's the preventative and the proactive, or like you have to take care of it when they're in that spot for therapy, right? They're in a situation where they've got to rehabilitate.
Right.
But then the like the actual training is that proactive of like, let's not get there again.
Right. And that's actually how I know Christine. When she had Anytime Fitness, I was a very part-time trainer there because I worked outpatient orthopedic setting right next door to the gym. But yeah, I'm one of the unique ones. I got my master's in occupational therapy, doctorate in physical therapy, and then decided to get certified in personal training. Most people are, if they are both personal trainer, then go on to therapy. But I just saw, like, I was discharging people and they're like, okay, I'll go to the gym and do something. But they had no idea how to do it safely, how to get whatever their fitness goal was. So there was a gap that I saw that I'm like, well, if I'm a personal trainer, then I can just transition them to that and get them where they want to be.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome how you did it the reverse way than most people. Because it would make sense as you're a personal trainer that you want to go deeper. Right.
Yes. Yeah. I always joke with people. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I got all the letters after my name just to figure it out. But I always wanted to be a physical therapist. And then my grandma was in the hospital and I saw an OT working with her. And I was like, well, shoot, I don't know which one I want to be. In a school down in Florida they don't offer it anymore, but they offered a program where I could do both. So I was like, well, might as well do that if I can't decide. And then, like you said, reverse engineering it. Then I was like, well, I need to add training so that I can see people beyond therapy and when insurance will stop paying for them to just come and do exercises.
I love it again because I think that so many things are just that surface level of we'll get you back to here.
Right.
But then it's like that drop off in what do you do? And I can't imagine that most people know what to do or they would do it.
Right. Yeah. And I always compare it to the Lions right now because they're doing so well.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Lions were pretty terrible and now they're pretty amazing. So I always say therapy can get you back to version 1.0 of yourself, or even less in some cases, depending on what you're there for. Whereas I fill the gap and try and get you even better than before. So I always call it like version 2.0 so that you're better than you ever thought you could be type thing.
And what do you typically see when people like, because you talk about that 1.0, like, do you see a pretty big gap there from that 1.0 to 2.0?
It depends on the person, but yeah. And one lady's in mind just because she emailed me over the holidays, so she's at the forefront of my mind. I actually ended up referring her to someone else just because of her location. I know another trainer in the area, and I knew she could see her the 3 times a week she wanted. I could only get out to the location once a week. So I started her, gave her a program, and then found the right person for her. And her main goal was like transferring again. She was in a wheelchair. She just wanted to transfer again. If you push people hard enough, and I know the trainer's very good at it that I referred her to, and I pushed people there before, she's now working on walking. So she didn't know that she would ever walk again. And here she is about to walk again. So there is a large gap.
It's really cool because I think about it with most things, like people don't really realize what can they get to.
Right.
They don't know what's possible.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people just kind of do the basics that they see online, like bicep curls, squats. But there's different types of exercises, whether it's cardio, jumping, plyometrics, whatever it is, that even a 70-plus-year-old can do if you progress them safely and they can get back to doing things they never thought they could.
And I love it. You said it depends on the person.
Yes.
And so, like, what does that look like? Because I think everybody is a little bit different. What does that look like when somebody comes to you? Is everybody kind of customized?
Everyone's very customized. I mean, I can push someone that had a stroke as hard as I want, but every stroke is different. Some people, I've gotten people from being in a wheelchair, not even being able to dress themselves, to walking down a hallway, picking up toothpicks off the floor, about to get on a plane to go back home or wherever. 'Cause one of my patients had a stroke while visiting here. And then other people, I can push them just as hard, but because of the stroke, they're never going to gain anything back. So that's where it kind of depends. But also just depending on people's lifestyles, their injuries, all of that. Everything's so custom. There's no cookie cutter approach to any surgery, even if it's just a regular day-to-day joint replacement, that's pretty common. Everyone responds differently.
Yeah, everybody's body is different. I've had like
Yes.
Kim Linga on here before.
Yeah, I know her. Yep.
And we're talking even like diet and,
Yes.
like one thing, that cookie cutter, like somebody will hear like carrots are good for you and they'll go and eat a bunch of carrots and then come to find out like you don't handle you don't digest carrots well, so it's not a one size fits all.
Right. Yeah. She does that cool. I've actually been talking to her. Have a call with her tomorrow. The DNA testing to kind of, figure out what you need. But yeah, same thing with.
That's coincidentally a call with her tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. That's awesome. Is weird. But same thing with like like my aunt had, she broke both her ankles and didn't know if she would, not that she needs to jump, but didn't know if she would jump again, but going about things in a different way. It took longer, but she can do some jumping. Not that she needs to, but you never know. Maybe you do have to jump one day.
Well, and like, how cool is it just to be able to do it if you want to?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Not have that limitation. I was talking, actually, the patient before I came here, she was saying, she's like, aging and how it changes isn't what gets me. It's like, if I want to go do this, I can't. Not that I want to go do it, but if you woke up one day and said, hey, I want to go for a hike, but you can't because of some sort of limitation.
It's no longer an option.
Right. They like the option still being there.
Yeah, so it's like you might not be playing basketball and jumping. You may not be like, but the sense of like, if you wanted to jump, you can do it. I mean, it's got to be pretty. I can't think of not being able to do it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Or like my parents probably don't think about jumping, but if they're playing with one of their grandkids and something happens and they jump, you want to be stable enough and strong enough and
How
okay
will
enough.
they recover from that?
Right. To not injure yourself. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you think about that, and like for me, like I've said several times, like I want to be 70 years old and still playing basketball, like like actively, like, and so it's like, what can I do now in order to get there, and like taking care of my body and doing things, and it's like, what can people do?
Yeah, and that's a good point, and it's people kind of have to think about that a little bit more, I think, because a lot of people wait, like. I don't want to say till it's too late, but till it's a harder road. I have a lot of people right now that I'm trying to rehab a hip back to being able to do to younger in the 40s, I think. But getting back to sports, and this problem has been going on for 10 years, but they're now just addressing it. Whereas if we had addressed it 5 years ago, probably would have been a little bit easier of a road. I find that a lot with back pain too. A lot of 30, 40-year-olds or even older are just like, oh, it's a normal aging process, but I can teach you things to fix it. And then it doesn't get worse over time.
We just accept things, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm in my 40s. I should feel this way.
Right. Yeah. People think it's normal, but that's, I don't know, whoever started that it was normal we just all think it's normal.
I know. It's just a mindset, right?
Right. Right.
It's a limiting, and like I talked about scarcity at the beginning. Like it's a scarcity mindset of this is just the way it is, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
For like my family has acid reflux runs like high in my family, like everybody has it. Yeah. In like, so most of my family is on like prescriptions, like I can't even think of I want to say Prozac. I know it's not Prozac. It's something like that. Something pro something.
Yes.
But what I found is just fixing my diet.
Yeah.
Because I was suffering from it. I was eating Tums every day and, sometimes multiple times a day. And I couldn't tell you the last time I've done that.
Yeah. It's amazing. Just exercise or diet in general can fix things like that. It can, like anxiety. I used to have a ton of anxiety. Made a couple changes and still have it, but it's way better. I've had a lot of patients. Diabetes is one, as long as it's type 2. Type 1's a different story.
Yeah.
But as long as it's type 2, if you catch it early enough, change your diet early enough, do exercises early enough, you don't really need medication or insulin shots or things like that for it. There's lots of things like that.
It's huge. It's something scarring I've talked about on the show several times is like when my grandma passed away and the coroner came and asked my mom, like, what, does she have any medications? My mom pulled out like a dresser drawer and it was like full of medications that my grandma took every day. And I was like, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that's not me.
Yeah.
Because, you think about those medications and it's like, you got to take this one and then this one causes this symptom. So you got to take this one to do that. And all these side effects, you're really just managing.
Right. Yeah. It's funny you say that because I remember when my grandma was alive, I went, I took my dog for visits. Long story. They wanted a dog. They were too old for a dog. So I took my dog over there.
Yeah.
But I remember walking in and she was holding a pretty big box of medicine. And she was like, I would just be like a pool of water on the floor without these. And there's probably 30 medicines in there. I was like, holy moly. I mean,
you're taking every day.
Right. Like she has Parkinson's and that medication you need. But there's other things like blood pressure meds. Sometimes you need them. Sometimes you don't, depending. Same thing, like anxiety. Sometimes you do need it, even if you change your diet, but a lot of it can be prevented by diet and exercise.
It's like, it's the easy pill. I saw something the other day, and it was it was something about entrepreneurship, and it was like the easy line. There was like a big line, and then there was like the hard work and the doing. It's like there's nobody in line there.
Right.
But it's like that same thing. It's like it's so easy. We'll just take a pill for it.
Right. Yeah.
But is that really easy?
Right. Yeah, that's
because,
true. Because
again, we think it's easy. We take a pill, it fixes it.
Right. In the short term.
In the short term. Yeah. But then we're taking another pill to, again, with the side effects, we're balancing it all out.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we have a dresser drawer full of pills.
Right. Yeah. That's like, there's a physical therapist have put out memes before, and nothing against like stretching places. They do benefit, but there was like a joke about like, hey, let's just go get a massage, stretching, which is good. People need it. Instead of for a back injury, instead of going to therapy, going through the exercises, the hard work of actually correcting what you need to correct. Yeah. Instead of just getting like a quick fix. Which really, if they use both hand in hand, like I work closely with a massage therapist, and if we just we've done different like case studies. Like I actually had knee pain. I couldn't really squat. So I was like, hey, I have a theory. I think it's basically tightness in my quad. So I had her do some work on it. Did some therapy exercises that I know because it's hard for me to work on myself. And then all of a sudden I could squat without pain and go further. So if you can use both, but the quick fix, sometimes you need the extra hard work as well.
Yeah, it's like everybody wants to sit on the table and do the massage. I've never had a problem where I've been like stiff or something, and I've went and I got a massage, and I felt it's like continued. Like I might feel good in the moment, I might feel good for maybe 30 minutes after,
right? But then
and
like
I'm like right back stiff again. Right. I've never had it cure that.
Right. Yeah, and they like I refer people to massage therapy all the time, but get loose, get the benefits of that, and then do X, Y, and Z exercise to maintain what they did, and then it doesn't come back. But people kind of don't like the exercise portion.
But it's, I love it because it's like going back. It's a little bit of the hard work. It's fixing some habits that are causing the main issue, because you can get that massage, but it's going to be right back there again tomorrow because you're sitting like this. Like you're
you haven't
like certain
fixed,
things you're doing. You're not fixing the positioning.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of it is time. That's kind of what I've strived to kind of help is parents like us. I mean, I have 2 older stepkids. I have, like I said, she's 1.5 now, 1.5-year-old at home. I own a business. My wife works nights. Like we're on opposite schedules. Time is very limited. So when you kind of go to the personal training side, I strive to be like, okay, not that I'm giving you a quick workout, but like 30 minutes can be just as effective as an hour and a half. Yeah. Even if you split that up into 2 15-minute sessions, if you're doing the right things. So that's kind of my aim, because I know people kind of go, like we were saying, the easy way to skip the harder way. And sometimes the limitation is time, which I totally get. I have very limited time. And it's not always easy to do with kids around, but there's ways around it.
And you talk about that customized, how do you work with somebody like that? That's like time is a challenge. Right.
Yeah. It's basically, my assessment, I just get all the information possible. What do you do for work? How many kids do you have? When are you home? Are you sitting? Are you standing? What time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? I even dive into like, hey, what do you do at night? Are you sitting there watching TV, scrolling on your phone? Do you have a bike you can hop on while you're doing that? Like this morning, my daughter woke me up at like 4 a.m. So when my alarm went off at 6, I did not want to wake up. But I did. And I actually have a little table on my treadmill that I can attach. And I just caught up on emails while walking. It wasn't the workout I wanted, but it was still some sort of movement. Yeah.
That's awesome. Just breaking it up.
Right. So yeah. So when I talk to people and just kind of customize it towards them, that's kind of what I do. When it's more in the therapy, someone could come in for a hip problem and I have to do a full body assessment because it could be coming from your neck, it could be coming from your back, or it truly could be your hip, or it could be your foot. So just trying to figure out, not every hip issue is because you need a hip replacement or because of a hip injury. I might actually have to work on your back or your foot, and then your hip is better.
It's like, again, we think about the things. It's like, we're going to go get the surgery. We're going to go take the pill. We think about what's maybe the easy route, but you can avoid those things.
Right. Yeah. My biggest thing is avoiding surgery. Now, there's a time and place for surgery. People need surgery. But if people would just kind of start looking for the help earlier, especially with back pain, people might disagree with me, but I'm a true believer that almost every back surgery can be prevented if you take the right steps. Joint replacements, obviously that's bone on bone. So you might need the surgery, but there's ways to prolong until you need it. Mm-hmm. Just different things like that.
What was, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but what was that passion that got you into therapy?
Yeah. So growing up, I always actually wanted to be a professional soccer player. And then I quit playing soccer in 8th grade. So I was like, well, that's not going to pan out. I went more into softball, but I ended up injuring, I think freshman year of high school, my knee. Had to have surgery on it. It was just kind of like extra tissue in my knee. So there's really nothing I could do to get that out of the way. They had to go in and take it. So then I went to physical therapy, and that's when I was like, oh, I can help people feel better. And I've always been one to like kind of want to keep the peace, help people. So I was like, this is a great way. I love sports. Like, the body fascinates me. Like, let's do it. So that's when I got on the physical therapy route. And then, like I said, when my grandma was in the hospital and I saw what occupational therapy could do as well, then I was like, oh, I want to do that too. I'm always one that is chasing that next thing. So chasing both those degrees were huge for me. And then, like I said, went on to personal training. I'm actually now in a course to get certified in cupping, to add more like manual therapy to my patients.
Yeah.
And help in different ways. So it's just any way I can try and help someone is how I got on the road.
Adding it in. It's like, I love it because when I talk about entrepreneurs and difference makers, the commonality between people is that usually they've had a problem or an experience in their own life that they've found a way to solve it.
Right.
They've had an experience to solve it, and then that's like your mission
right.
throughout your life, right?
Right.
And your vehicle is growing because
right.
you're adding the cupping and some different things in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I always knew I wasn't one for sitting at a desk. I don't actually have ADD, but I think I do. And I'm just always like, I got to get up. Yeah. I got to do this. It's fun. We have a cottage up north, and I used to always make fun of my dad because he would sit down for a little bit, then get up and like go fix something, then come back. As I'm getting older, I'm like, oh, I'm just like him. Like, I can sit for a little bit, but I'm like, oh, let me go pick up this part of the house, and then I'll come rest again. So I knew I always had to be on my feet and moving and have that next challenge. And just the customization of all my patients give me that next challenge because everyone's different.
I love that too. When everything is different, it's like a strategy almost. You have to figure it out.
Right.
A puzzle.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And that's one of the things that made me lead to like my own business. I was doing outpatient therapy, but the companies that I worked for, I had to see more than one person at a time, sometimes up to 4 at a time. And I didn't feel like it was fair. I was like, you deserve my one-on-one attention, not 10 minutes. And then I throw you to do exercises, not watching you. So then I went into home health, which is one-on-one, but it didn't challenge my brain as much as like people our age, parents, younger, just because a lot of times when you get in the older population, it's strokes or falls or things like that, which I love doing, but not as much as a challenge. So then I was like, oh, well, what if I can do one-on-one and get all these different cases coming in that I can customize? So that's when I decided to see how owning a business would go.
That's really cool because I think about, older people, yes, the physical therapy they needed, but how many of them are then getting using it to walk out of the nursing home or using it, you're not, there's not a goal to get to here, from here to here, right? Usually it's like to be back to maintaining.
Right. And my main goal with my elderly patients is, okay, let's get you back to being able to dress yourself, which is important.
Yeah.
But it's more so like mobility, movement, and making sure you're stable on your feet versus like, hey, you've got knee pain. Let's look at your foot, your hip, your back, your neck, and see where it's coming from.
So who's one of your favorite people that you worked with? Like a favorite story?
Yeah. I always go back to I was actually on clinicals. I had a guy that had a stroke. I kind of talked about him earlier, but in a wheelchair, way taller than I was. Like my clinical instructor told me to go in and like get him in the wheelchair to like bring him down to rehab because I was at a hospital. And I like went in and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm picking up this dude. So I had to call her and I was like, we need backup. I kind of need you up here. 3 of us had to transfer him. 3 of us had to help him shower. 3 of us had to do everything. He didn't have a lot of motivation, so I had to see how my clinical instructor used tough love on him. But at the end of the day, he was the guy walking out of the hospital, picking up toothpicks, getting on a plane to fly across the country to go back home. So that was one of my all-time favorites, seeing how it can change people's lives.
I love that because like tying that story back and him being the guy that's picking up the toothpick, getting on the plane, like what was that? Because you said he didn't have the motivation. What was the switch? Because I always say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Like you could work magic, but you can't make that guy just want it.
Right.
What was the difference?
The biggest thing is really just getting down to the heart of the person and seeing like what matters to them. Like, there's a couple of people that I've had recently. They're like, oh, I'll just walk with like a limp forever, but I know we can get rid of it or the pain that's causing the limp. And I'm like, well, like, don't you want to play with your grandkids? Or didn't you say you go camping? Don't you want to be able to hike? And just really questioning them to see what's holding them back, whether it's fear, whether it's depression, like the guy with the stroke. I can't even imagine how he was feeling, not being able to use part of his body, or just getting to what they truly want to do and using that as motivation with a little bit of tough love.
It's huge. And I love that. And again, like when I talk about the difference makers, there's so much cookie cutter.
Yes.
There's so much one size fits all. There's so much like ask a couple questions and then fill in the blanks for the rest of the stuff.
Right.
And I'm not saying people are bad. I'm saying it's the common. It's the normal. It's the 99% out there. You can see it where it's like people will ask a few questions and then they'll fill in the blanks and we're so far beyond the surface. So in order to really correct the issue, we might be able to make somebody feel better for a little bit, but in order to really like shift a perspective,
right?
Because that's what you help that guy do, is really shift a mindset,
right?
In order for him to all of a sudden want it enough to where he's putting in the work to now he's picking up the toothpicks and getting on the airplane. He had to shift his mindset.
Right.
You couldn't make him want it.
Right.
There's something you were asking those questions and you're finding out beyond that surface of, no, what do you really want to do? Because the truth of the matter is those people aren't going to tell you unless you're really diving in and you're providing a space that's allowing them to be open and vulnerable and tell you, because he doesn't have any hope.
Right.
He doesn't think that that's going to be possible.
Right.
He's not thinking about that or even telling anybody about it because he doesn't think it's possible.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I just had a lady, the other day, I just know her through being a therapist, but she's in therapy and she's like, yeah, like, I don't know, I'm kind of getting better. And I'm like, what do you mean you're kind of getting better? Like, you just had surgery. You should be getting a lot better. And she's like, well, yeah, I go and they're like, okay, go on the bike for 10 minutes and then do this. And then they switched the resistance on this because it had been 3 visits and you have to increase every 3 visits. And I was like, that makes no sense. I was like, why are you on the bike for 10 minutes? Why are they not watching you do your exercises? And why does 3 visits dictate like
you're done?
Yeah, progression or whatever. I was like, really, you could start on stairs, for example. You could start going upstairs but compensating, but you stay at that same height, work on other muscles with other exercises, and then you're finally doing that height, not compensating and doing it normal. That could take 8 visits. It could take 2 visits. So There's a lot of people out there that still use the very cookie cutter approach, but that's what I strive to be different from, is more customized, individual.
And I love it. And again, it's like it's a discipline of being able to see people.
Yeah.
And when you do, it sparks that change in the other person.
Right. Yeah. You just got to find, like I said, what they need. Like I've always, with my background, I've been in sports. I've always been into working out. No one's perfect. I'm not consistent. Like I preach to people, but I'm not always great at following the advice myself. But I realized once, like my stepkids came into my life, and then especially now with my daughter, I was like, I gotta be able to keep up with these guys.
Yeah.
Like my arms are sore after I carry them for X amount of time. Like I'm up and down off the ground, and this is hurting. And that was my motivational factor to be like, okay, I have to actually stick to my plan.
Yeah.
Because I was just like anyone else. I would work out for 2 months at a time, take a month or so off, and then go back into it.
Yep.
Or said, oh, I went for a walk. That's my workout. But you need more than that. So that's kind of helped me within the last few years, is to really dive into the true meaning and life that people live.
I love it when you think about it. It's like, because we can, there's like the awareness, and then there's like doing something about it. And I think a lot of times people are just kind of going through life and not knowing the awareness. I kind of had something similar, and I used to work out a lot. Like I was at a point where at this point in my life, it was probably like 2012, 2010,
Okay.
2010. I used to work out a lot. Didn't anymore. My son was like 2-3 years old, constantly active. I had just taken over a company where I was pouring a ton of energy into rebuilding this dumpster fire of a company, and like so I'm working a lot, and then I'm coming home, and Jackson wants to play, and he's running, and he's like, got all those energy, and I was like feeling tired and just want to take a nap.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that like people would like at my job, like my employees or my people would always, like my younger guys would talk about working out and stuff and be like, oh, when I used to work out, I was like, when I used to work out, I'd like tell stories about when I used to. And it was like, I caught myself doing that, and then coming home and not having any energy. And I'm like, this has got to change. Like I've got to pour back into working out and getting that energy back, because I know that difference. I know that difference, and I'm like barely making it at the end of the day, know? And so using that driver, I did, and it changed my life. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, anyone in my life I don't think I told you this story, but anyone in my life will tell you, like, they're probably still amazed, and it's a few years into it. My sister actually read the book, The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. And she recommended it to me, and I was like, okay, like I got to figure out something. I need extra time for workouts or extra time for building my business, whatever it is. And I was waking up at 5. I am not a morning person. Like that's why everyone's like so amazed. Like it used to be like, Kelly's awake, don't talk to her, let her get her coffee, like just leave her alone. And so I started waking up at 5 a.m. I was really consistent with it. Then we had my daughter. I have not been up at 5 a.m. purposefully for a while, but I try to wake up between 5:30 and 6:30, just because with her sleep, it kind of threw me off.
Yep.
But I was never a morning workout person. I was never a morning wake up person. And once I mean, it was hard as hell to do. But once I did it and woke up, like it was a game changer.
Isn't it funny? I think what I love about humans is we can literally make that decision to be like, I'm not a morning person. I don't like waking up, but then I can commit to this practice, and it changes who you are.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The last 6 to 8 weeks, we've gone through like every illness in our family. So I have not been waking up early. And this morning I alluded to it. I was like, you know what? I have to start. Like I'm preaching this to everyone else. We've been so sick. We're better now. I have to start. So yeah, my daughter woke me up at 4. My dog woke me up at 5. Like it was just, I didn't get much sleep. I think at like midnight, the little shower caddy we have suction to our shower decided to crash. So that woke me up. So everything in my body did not want to get up. I did not want to like go do my workout, but I yelled at myself a lot in my head, but I still went down and did it. And then I felt better.
Let's go.
Right afterwards. So
yeah,
there you go.
And then how good does that feel after you do it?
Right. And then I wasn't tired anymore.
Yeah.
Because exercise helps wake you up, build energy. And I was like, oh, my head was hurting. I was super tired. And then I did 20 minutes and I was like, oh, I feel better. Let's go.
It's so crazy because I'm not a morning person either. I remember going to my grandma and grandpa's house when I was a little kid, and like they'd make coffee at like 5 a.m. And like I remember the smell, and I remember like they'd be so cheery in the morning. And I'm like, when I get old, I'm going to make coffee at 5 a.m. and wake up. That's just what happens, and it never hit.
Right,
I never
doesn't
like
happen,
just naturally like had that happen.
Right.
But like, if you make that choice, like even I've had to, like, for example, I do the objection handling boot camps Monday and Tuesday mornings. My workout routine is I work out in the morning, Monday through Friday. And like, for me, if I don't have it on the calendar, if I don't know that I'm doing it, it's so easy to, I'll do it later.
Right.
I'll do it when I get home. And then I get home and I have no energy. And I also know the gym is packed because it's 6 o'clock, right? And everybody's there. And so it's like, oh, I'll give myself every excuse until it's 8 o'clock and then I don't go.
Right.
What's so awesome about kicking it off in the morning is like you get up, you're there, like you get the, the blood flowing, like all that kind of stuff. But then like the day ends and I already got my workout in.
Right. Exactly. And you don't have to worry if plans come up or if,
But so doing the boot camps, they kick off, or we start them at 9 a.m. I got to be there at 8:30. And so I've got to get in the gym by like 6:30 a.m. So I can like be showered and like ready at the boot camp. And like, oh, this sucks. But I did it. I adjusted, and it's
right.
I feel so rewarding being in there in the gym at like 6:30.
For sure. Yeah. And I give you all the credit because you actually drive to a gym to work out.
Not too far. not too, it's like 5 minutes. So
I say we completely redid our gym just to try and like have the motivation to go down and do it. So, which is funny because we did it like during the sickness. So like this past week, I'm like, oh, we're finally using what we created.
That's awesome.
But having the motivation to get up and go to a gym is even another step. So that's awesome.
For me, because I've done we have a bunch of stuff at home to where I could get good workouts in at home, but I find it's more motivating if I leave the house because it's so easy to do other things between.
That's true.
If I'm gone, I have my dedicated hour or whatever, I'm there.
Right.
And it's just, for me mentally, I'm better there.
No, for sure. And that makes sense. I mean, I have my office is my office at home. And I just hear people around the house. I'm like, oh, let's go see what they're doing. And I'm not 100% focused. So I've started going to like coffee shops for an hour to like get stuff out. But that was me before with the gym. Now that my daughter's at home, I just have to have the monitor there in case she wakes up and stuff. So I was like, how can I make this work at home?
That's super cool.
The gym, though, I'll be honest, it was usually like, okay, after work, go to the gym or you're not allowed to go home type thing.
That's awesome.
So it wasn't a morning workout, but and
everybody's different. It goes back to what we were saying before.
Yeah,
everybody's different.
Right.
And it's like, it's nice to be able to like stop at home and say, I'm not going home until I get this.
Right. Yeah. And I big on kind of why I started the personal training stuff too is like accountability. Like I do such a better workout if I'm going to the gym with someone or if like I work out at home with my wife or whatever it is. If I have someone there, even walks, like I'll be like, hey mom, you want to go for a walk after babysitting? Just that accountability is huge for a lot of people. And I get it because I get a better workout in if someone's not even if they're doing it with me, if they're just watching me, making sure I'm working out. Yeah. So
let's talk about that. We talked about like a lot of people want to be at their home. Yeah. Let's talk about how you do that.
Yeah. So basically, I'm kind of all over, but Livingston County. So I go to anyone. My main ones are Brighton and Howell, but I'll go to like Heartland, South Lyon a little bit, the edge of Pinckney. I am in Novi and Wixom a little bit right now. It's a little bit outside of my range, so I'm only heading there like once a week. But basically just I try and pick days of like what cities I'm in and filter out my route and whatever works for people, whether it's before work, after work, if they work from home, their lunch hour. A lot of people are like, oh, are you sure you can do it here? I haven't ran into anyone that I can't. I have a portable table if I need it for manual therapy, or like a lot of people just using their couch or bed for exercises works. Plus it's how they would do it if I'm not there, for the program that I give them. So yeah, I can kind of create, they'll be like, oh, well, I don't have this or this. And I'm like, okay, well, we can use your stairs for this. We can hold a gallon of water for this. There's different things.
That's
I mean,
so
I bring
cool.
stuff with me, but
Yeah.
my main point is like, let me show you how you can do this on your own.
Even when you're out there with bringing your stuff.
Exactly. Because a lot of, we call them repeat customers. A lot of people will fix the pain, the injury. We give them a program and say, hey, if you do this every other day, you're going to be good. Just continue to do it. They don't do it. And then 3 months down the road, they're calling me again saying, hey, I need you for the same thing.
Yep.
So my big thing is the nice thing in their house or work or wherever it is, some people at work have gyms and stuff, is to show them how they can do it. And ideally not need me, even though I love to help people, but ideally keep that.
It's teaching a person how to fish.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it because it's like most people aren't thinking about the normal objects they have in their house and how they can get a workout in.
Right. Yeah. There's a lady I just discharged recently. She had sciatica, but dealing with it, I think it was 4 or 5 years. All I needed was like 3 visits. And she was like, oh, if I just do this every morning, I'm fine. And I was like, yeah, it's probably like the firmness of your bed, how you sleep, whatever. If that's how you're comfortable, great. But when you first wake up, do this, and then your symptoms will be free. And that's kind of one thing I always tell people. If you don't see marked improvement in 3 visits, I can't help you. Everyone should see, even if they're going to a different physical therapy place or occupational therapy place, within 3 visits, they should see some sort of benefit or improvement. Otherwise, you got to dig a little deeper into what's going on, whether it's imaging or whatever it is.
That's so good to know.
Yeah.
I don't know if the average person knows that.
No, I don't think they do. I'm learning that because someone came up to me a few months ago and was like, I've been going for like 6 weeks and I'm not better. And I'm like, why are you still going?
Yeah.
Like if they don't get you better, then, so I always tell people, give me 3 visits, depending, like if you waited 20 years to come to me for a problem, maybe give me 4 or 5, but overall,
give you some grace here.
Right. Give me some grace. You waited too long. But overall, within 3 visits, you should see some change.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We talked about a couple weeks ago, and we're kind of alluding to this here, kind of a program where you start off somebody on therapy, and then like it's the kind of part of the plan, the strategy that they then continue working out.
Yeah. So I like to kind of call that the perfect patient plan. Just again, going from you might come to me after an injury at like 50% of your capacity, getting you to the 100%, the 1.0 in therapy, and then going beyond that to the 2.0. So I have a few options. Is if you need the accountability, someone right there with you, I can either keep coming to your house and doing it, or I can do like a virtual Google Meet type thing. Or I have this very interactive app, which is pretty cool. I've taken the time to do like show the exercises myself in the videos. I kind of do a written description. I plan them on the days you need. You can interact, talk with me to make sure they're doing like you're doing them right. Depending on the plan you pick, I pretty much check in every workout day. But it gives you some sort of accountability because usually I give you the day of the workout. And then if I don't see anything by noon the next day, I'm like, hey, what you doing? Do you need me to move the day? Because I can easily move the day. So it kind of fits all lifestyles, whether I still have to come to your house or if you've kind of been changing your work schedule so that I can come to your house, then I'm kind of with you, but in your pocket on your phone, and you can do it whenever it fits in your day.
Never.
Yeah, I have someone right now. She does I don't even bug her until 24 hours after because she does them at like midnight. And I'm like, well, I don't know if she's going to do them yet. So I can't bug her because she usually doesn't work out till midnight.
Yeah.
So things like that, they can do them whenever, but they have me there. You can see them ahead of time. So if you are a midnight workout person, I am not awake to respond to you. But you can message me beforehand if you have any questions.
What's what I love, and I love as entrepreneurs, putting in tools where we can serve our people while we're sleeping, or while we're helping other people, or while we're vacationing with our family, or whatever it is, while we're sick with our family.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Because it happens.
Right. It does. Yeah. And that was kind of the big reason I moved a little bit more to virtual, because I was very into like in person, and then COVID happened. I started my business after COVID, but I was very like, why are they doing virtual therapy? Like, I was very much against it, to be honest. And then I was like, well, shoot, I own my own business. If I'm sick and I can't work, I got no fill-in. I have no one to fill in for me. Whereas at a clinic, another therapist would just fill in.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to find a way to maintain or still improve people, even if I'm sick. So I started kind of dabbling with the virtual stuff, like Zoom, Google Meet. I was like, oh, this is pretty effective for some. And then the app too. So as long as people don't actually truly need manual therapy, I can do just as good therapy or training with either the interactive app or virtually as well, which means I can do it if I'm not here, if I'm sick or wherever.
It's so cool. And it's so cool how you had kind of like the, poo-pooing it or,
right.
Whatever that mindset of, but then you're finding actually it's really effective.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm one, people joke. They always say I was born in the wrong generation because I don't really like technology. But I'm learning more and more now that I have a business. I'm like, there's some really cool stuff. And it can be just as effective. Yeah. You just have to know how to use it and like not use the cookie cutter approach to dish it out, but it's definitely been a very useful tool.
It is all part of that learning, but it's like grasping because as entrepreneurs, like we don't have a ton of hands doing it. Like if we're sick, you don't have the backup. Right, exactly. And so to be able to put systems and technology in place, and even looking at like the Chat GPT and stuff like that you're using, it's like, yeah, customizing it. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That was, as you know, that was another thing I'm like, why would I use that? I'll just come up with my stuff on my own. Yeah. But it does give you ideas. I won't lie, I use Chat GPT now, not for long because I was so against it. Probably could have saved me a lot of time, but I look at the points that it kind of comes up with and I'm like, oh, okay. And then let's customize this. So I don't use the exact wording, but customize it to my beliefs and what I'm trying to get across.
That's exactly it. But it's so insane how much time it can save you. Yes. Just even thinking about, we sat down and we did that session, right? And I recorded it, right? And then going through and taking the transcript and putting it through ChatGPT. And there was specifically, as we were talking, there was like 3 or 4 different story things that we talked about. Yep. And I'm like, that's content. And I gave you like a way of posting it. And then I was like, I literally asked ChatGPT, go find the content suggestions and create content posts around what we talked about. And it was like, boom. Yeah. It was like, here, take this, do what you want with it. Right. But it's like a starter.
Right. Which is awesome because it took our authentic conversation and just put it into words for us.
There was one thing, this is like a perfect segue because this is something to talk about too, but it was like 1 in 3 women have pelvic floor symptoms or issues, or however I worded it. And I was like, I literally went back and was like, ChatGPT, is that a correct stat? Can you cite me your sources? I don't even want to send it to Kelly before I'm going to like verify that I don't know where it came up with the statistic. We didn't talk about it.
Right. No, we didn't.
So like ChatGPT added in the statistic and I was like, all right, I need to verify. And it's true. And it cited the sources. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
It's funny you say that because I verified it too. I'm like, where did he get this from?
It was ChatGPT. I was like, whoa. It took our conversation and then added in the stat. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's one, just kind of segue into that. I have it's called Fit Floor Training. It's all in that interactive app. There's different levels because everyone's different. But basically any pelvic floor issues, male or female, I have you fill out a questionnaire. If there's red flags where you actually need therapy, I say, hey, no, you can't go into my program. We need to do therapy first. That's far and few between. It's if you have a serious issue. But then there's different levels of like, hey, here's the general thing. Hey, if you need a little bit more individualized. I only really made a general one for that because it can be a very sensitive topic for people. I didn't like talking about it at first either. I was like, oh, this is just people's private matters. But they need help with it. Yeah. I mean, you can have a 20-year-old, you can have an 80-year-old that basically pees their pants and like they don't want to, they're embarrassed by it, but they're not going to tell anyone about it. I had actually the best response the other day. I don't know if she'll listen to this or not, but someone approached me about something that they could help with, basically peeing their pants, our age, and was like, hey, do you think this will help me? I kind of gave her my advice without giving too much information. And she's like, yeah. She's like, my New Year's resolution is to stop peeing my pants every day. And And I was like, yeah, I can't imagine how that feels. And she's like, well, it's not my fault. She's like, I had kids. It's my kids' fault. So I was like, if only everyone felt like, thinking that way, or painful peeing or whatever. But I know it's kind of an embarrassing topic for people, but I mean, we all have our accidents. We all might be going through it. The more people you can talk about, the more support you have.
On that stat, you're just like 1 in 3.
Right.
And I don't know if 1 in 3 are having incontinence issues or whatnot,
something.
but it's like a something, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And again, talk about vulnerability.
Right.
And you're not going out and telling everybody that. They might not even be telling their spouse that. You know,
Right,
like they're
exactly.
probably hiding it from the people that they're closest to.
Right.
I had Dr. Michael Berry, who was a chiropractor, on a couple months ago now, and he had mentioned in his episode how as he'll be treating somebody over time and adjusting them, they'll let him know afterwards, after the fact, that I had these incontinence issues too, and it fixed something. And I was like, and then when he said that, I was like, wow. And then when we were talking, it was like, you're like, there's actually a lot of people out there.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, it might not just be the incontinence. It could be bladder or bowel. It can just be pain with anything in the area. It can be leaking. It can be just a weak core, weak pelvic floor muscles that impact other movements. But a lot more people have it. A lot of people kind of tie it to pregnancy, and they're like, oh yeah, you had kids. That's normal. Mm-hmm. So those people are a little bit more likely to talk about it, or older people.
Yep.
But it can happen to people that have never had kids, males, all sorts of people. So.
And I loved, because we were talking about this, like, it is vulnerable. And you're like, even at the very beginning, it's like, it was tough for you to dive in and talk about, but it's one of those things of being able to help people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes people, I don't know, sometimes probably too much information. I've peed my pants before. I've never actually physically given birth to a child.
Yeah.
Not that I do it all the time, but sometimes just your body does weird things.
Yeah.
And it happens. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, you haven't gone through labor. You don't know. And I'm like, well, it's only happened once and I have no idea why it happened, but I can imagine if that happened every day, I can imagine how I would feel, because that day was pretty miserable.
Yeah.
But so obviously if it happens constantly, then that's when you have an issue. You need to strengthen the muscles and all of that. But yeah, a lot of people don't enjoy talking about it.
If somebody was listening right now and they're like, obviously they're really resonating with this.
Right.
What would they do? How would they reach out to you? That kind of thing. How do they get started with that? Because if they're feeling vulnerable about it, how do they reach out?
For sure. So the easiest way, without even talking to me, you can go to my website, which is www.champtherapywellness.com. And if you go to the form section, there's it's called Fit Floor Questionnaire. Click on it, fill it out, and then email it to me. My email's on there. And then from that's when I can tell, like, you can look on my website and see kind of what program you want to be in. But depending how you answer that, I can just email you back and filter you into whatever program I think fits best. If you want to just have contact all through email, that's fine. If you want to do like a virtual assessment, just talking through things, or phone call, that's fine too. But that's probably the least talkative, I guess, if that's the way to say it.
It's a great
first
action step, going on the website and
just do the questionnaire and then kind of see where it goes from there.
That's nice, easy, non-abrasive.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I tried to make it as detailed as possible, like asking all those awkward questions where you just answer yes or no. So you don't even have to really go into detail, because I pretty much ask everything anyways. So just circle yes or no, and you don't have to go into detail about things.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And so Kelly obviously gave the website. It will be in the show notes as well. So Perfect. if you're looking back on how to spell it, even though it's on Kelly's shirt. I also love how Kelly brands herself just as well as I do. Like, you're constantly in your logo too. And I love your zip up. So
thank you. Yeah. It's most days I wear it. Some days I don't. When I was getting dressed this morning, I was like, oh, I'm on the podcast.
You got to wear it today.
I should probably put something on. So yeah, I usually do. I still work part-time for another company. So sometimes I just alternate depending on the weather, but Most times I'm in my Champ stuff. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So like, what has that been like? You still have some part-time, but what has it been like merging in and almost, becoming full-time in the business?
It's been a lot of fun. There's been some challenges, but it's been a lot of fun, a big learning curve. My dad and I actually talked about me owning my own business. I forget how long ago it was, but I always semi-joked / was actually pretty serious when I was like, well, when you retire, you do the business stuff. I'll just treat people because I'm not a business person. And I always joked about it. And then obviously he was not going to open a business and run it for me. Which I don't blame him. He worked hard and deserves his retirement. But so I talked to my friend in Florida who was doing roughly the same thing. He was actually helping me out with my grandpa down there. He's like, why don't you look into it? And I was like, okay. And I kind of got in contact with some business coaches that helped him, and they're all therapists and did the same thing. And I was like, well, I guess I'll learn as I go. But no, it's been a journey. It's been fun though.
It's awesome because you're going through stuff. It's like you've got the natural DNA of the entrepreneur. It's like the ADHD.
Yeah.
I've never been tested. I
Right.
know I'm not. It's like I've read through or I've worked with clients that are ADHD.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you are too. You know that, right? It's like, yeah, I know. It's like I've never tested, but it's
Right.
like that superpower for entrepreneurs. I think if to be an entrepreneur, you kind of gotta be on that.
Right.
On that spectrum.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Because you're doing so many things. You're spinning so many plates.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, I was doing it while doing like full time at a different company. I mean, it was a lot because I had to wear that hat. I already have to wear PT, OT, and training hats.
Yeah.
Business hat, mom hat, wife hat. Finally learned that I need to delegate things. So my sister moved back to Michigan and I was like, look, you basically went to school for advertising, marketing, stuff like that. Like, will you do my marketing? So she does all my social media content, most of it. I do some of it too. And we collaborate all the time on it. Just cause she doesn't know the terminology and stuff.
Yeah.
From therapy in the medical world. But so I kind of outsource that. My wife helps me a lot too. In the beginning, I didn't let her, but I was like, I got it. I can do it all. And then I was like, okay, I can't do it all. Those are the only things I've really outsourced. I have a couple therapists that do like super part-time stuff. Like, I have a PTA in Fenton. She's amazing. She just does self-pay visits. But I learned as people were calling from all over the place. I was like, I can't be driving all over Michigan to see people. So she was looking for something. I knew her from a previous job and I was like, hey, do you just want a couple visits a week?
That's awesome.
That's pretty much all she does right now. I have an OT that will pick up if I need her to. But it's mainly in terms of seeing people, just me.
That's nice though that you've got your, you can keep building
Right.
from a business standpoint and know that you have a team. So
Right. Right. Yeah. I go back and forth on actually getting like a billing person, but I'm like, I'm not big enough yet to do that. So I'll just keep doing that. But
yeah.
so.
And then you make sure you get your money because.
Right. Insurance is tough though.
Insurance is tough. Yeah.
Yeah. It is tough. But
I had worked with she does brain therapy, the brain
Okay.
therapist, and when I started working with her a couple of years ago, had just let go of her billing person because she went a whole entire year without actually billing people. So not all of them, and so there was so
Right.
much money that was sitting out there that she didn't go get, and then it was
Yeah,
But I
that's
hear
bad.
that common. It's
Yeah.
common.
Yeah. Well, insurance, it depends on the insurance. They'll take 6 to 10 weeks to pay you.
Yeah.
Like it can be a long time.
Yep.
So yeah, I take some of the major insurances, but besides that, I do self-pay, just because insurance kind of limits you too in the therapy world. Like insurance, if you came to me for back pain and wanted to see me through insurance, I could really only address your back. But if I thought it was coming like from your foot or your hips, because your legs were different lengths, I couldn't address that without a brand new script and new eval.
Yeah.
Whereas if you self-pay me, I can do a thorough full body evaluation
And actually get to the root
and
of
actually
the
get to the
problem.
root of the problem. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, which I get, like using their insurance, but if you have one like I do, it's a very high deductible. If we never, knock on wood, never meet it. So you actually end up paying more than you would self-pay wise.
And so you were saying, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but you said it again today. It's like the end of the year where everybody's at their deductible. So your insurance folks are slowing down because now they've got to meet a whole nother deductible.
Yeah. It's always like October through December. Like at one point I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like taking off. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But it was all insurance people. So I take Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Blue Care Network, and HAP. And it was all insurance people because they had met their deductible and they're like, okay, let's finally address this issue I've had. But 90% of them have said, okay, come tomorrow, December 31st, I'm done because the deductible starts again, which is fine. I get, but that also like some people, they're like 75% better and they need like 2 more weeks to get fully better. They just want to stop. So they're going to stop short of what their goals are.
Well, so at the beginning, we were talking about like you're talking about somebody that like does 3 visits and that's what insurance pays for. It really keeps you in the minimum. It's the minimum of like what. There's another word for it. I'm trying to think of, and I'm like lost at it. But it's like just the like kind of the bare minimum of like the standard is here.
Yeah, and so I think this is what you're alluding to. But like with insurance, Blue Care Network's one of the biggest ones. I need to get like authorization. So I do an evaluation and I say, hey, this person had ACL surgery. Give me 12 visits. I know I'll need more because ACLs are long rehab. But I was like, give me 12 visits 3 times a week and then we'll go. And insurance will be like, we get your point, but here's 8 visits. And then after 8 visits, I have to be like, hey, I need more. And they're like, okay, here's 1 more. And they don't actually let me carry out the plan or it's delayed because they haven't approved it or whatever it is. So yeah, they kind of limit you, which is a little crazy.
I say there's like you have a 12-week plan and then they interrupt the plan. Really,
right? Exactly. Yeah. Whereas the nice thing about self-pay too is like I can see you. Maybe I just need to see you in person once this week, and then we can do like a virtual visit, or you can do one of my training. Like we can kind of make it a hybrid approach to fit your schedule, fit your needs. Or the other nice thing is if you do have those insurances, but deductible comes into play, like direct access. A lot of people think you need a script from a doctor, but Michigan's a direct access law. So for 3 weeks, I can see you without one. And again, in 3 visits, you should feel better. So you should know if it's working. And then usually at the end of those 3 weeks, I'm like, okay, go get a script. We have a little bit more to do. Or, hey, you're fixed. You never had to go to the doctor. And that saves on what you have to pay, too.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's really huge.
So, yeah.
You talked about like ACLs and whatnot. And I know, your experience as an athlete. Mm-hmm. What is the kind of work that you do with athletes?
Yeah. So I was the assistant coach for Brighton softball for a little bit. So those were the majority of the athletes that would come to me. Right now, I'm trying, to be honest, to grow that area. Trying to kind of get more in with athletes. But I have a lot of experience with softball, baseball players' shoulders. They overuse their shoulders all the time. Knees are another one. So soccer players, they're kind of the most knee injured sport, I guess. In my experience, I've been trying to kind of even get in with schools or teams. So if anyone knows of one, looking for it, just a preventative. Like if you actually have a good off-season workout, even in season, you can prevent a lot of injuries. So there's different criteria you should meet for off-season and during season training. Off-season's a little bit more aggressive. During season's a little bit less, but it's still like once softball season starts, you can't stop strengthening your shoulder. You're going to injure it. There's still different things that you need to focus on. It's more stability than strength. So I guess roundabout answers, I'm looking for athletes to work with, but I have a lot of experience just between coaching and playing myself.
I love it. And again, it goes back to that experience. And,
right.
And do you find, I don't know if this is like just my awareness and looking at it, but do you find there's more like major injuries for high school athletes now? I feel like there's more ACL, MCL. I don't remember being
there's a ton, and maybe it's my memory. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how my memory is affected.
But, I know. I don't remember this happening.
Right. So I played competitive softball all the way through senior year. Once I went to college, I just kind of played for fun. But I don't remember, like, I've even talked to my friends that I've played with, and I'm like, were we injured? Like, I don't, besides my knee surgery, which was something completely different, besides a couple other people's injuries, like soccer players, we had a lot of ACL. I know my friends that played soccer, there's a handful. But I was like, I don't remember all these injuries. And then I coached, and I'm like, half our team is coming to me saying they're injured, or going to the trainer saying they're injured.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on? But then as I dug deeper, just because that's what I do, the girls were like, oh yeah, after practice, we're going to batting practice or catching practice or pitching practice. I'm like, so after we practice for 2-3 hours, you're going to do another 2 hours. And this is like every day of the week. And you're just play one sport. So it's like sport specific, and you're just overusing those joints. So yeah, I see a lot more.
I was wondering if that plays into it. You know, you see like, with the way sports are now, and believe me, I'm a sports person, so I love it from a standpoint. But like, kids are training to be in the NBA or the MLS at like 8 now. Like, and like the soccer programs are all year round. Baseball, softball, it's all year round.
It's crazy. Yeah, my stepson, he plays soccer. He's very good, but he's 9. He's been playing almost year round for a while now.
Yeah.
I think the only time he got like 2 weeks off for the holidays, maybe 3. And then he gets, I think his last tournament's in like June or something, like mid-June. And then his very first tournament is August. So
it's like the 2-month break.
So it's like
he's practicing in between there. So.
And then, yeah, I think he gets like, it's like 4 weeks of practice off. But besides that, practicing, year round.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like you look at that, and there's a reason why, as they're getting to a certain age, there's so many more ACL and MCL, like knee injuries and
yeah, because I think even when I played competitive softball and did like my catching classes and stuff, there's like 2 months in the winter I think we trained.
Yeah.
But then besides that, we had it off. So, I mean, that's the time we trained is pretty much the only time they have off now.
So I think it's like, as you talk about doing the preventative programs and working with the schools, if anybody has that connection, you know, reach out to Kelly because it's so badly needed.
Right.
You know, it's needed to help these kids prevent from these major injuries.
Right. Yeah. I started, before I left coaching, I started implementing a little bit, just like resistant band, like warm-ups for the shoulder, like before games and stuff. Because I'm like, you guys are going to be throwing as hard as you possibly can because you're competing, you're playing a game.
Yeah. Like,
yes, you do your throwing warm-ups, but like, let's get your rotator cuff solid before we do that type thing. That was my last year of coaching, but I feel like people were complaining a little bit less that year. But then I stopped since my daughter came in. That was just too many hats to wear.
Oh yeah. Add coach and entrepreneur and mom and exactly.
Right. So yeah. But yeah, the injury prevention is huge. Even with surgeries, like going into surgery, the stronger you are, the better the outcome. A lot of doctors have started doing what they call prehab, like before joint replacements and stuff, like knee replacements. Because a lot of people, they're like,
before the actual.
Because they're like, oh, you're bone on bone. Like, I'm going to have surgery. I'll just sit here and do nothing. Those are the people that like not necessarily get an infection, but can't get their range of motion back, can't do this, can't do that. And they have a longer road to recovery after. Whereas if we can get you going in with as much motion as possible, even though they're replacing the knee, as much strength as possible, flexibility as possible, it's a lot easier recovery.
It makes so much sense, and kind of as you say that, it makes so much sense why like somebody like Aiden Hutchinson could make it back for 2 Super Bowl. You know, like
I still find that crazy.
I find that crazy. I don't think it's gonna happen. Like even seeing him now, like he's made major progress, but like he's still walking with a limp, and I can't picture him being at full strength by Super Bowl. But
who knows? He's got the best of the best, I'm sure.
That's exactly. He's got the genetics and I'm
sure his bones are very strong too,
and all of it. But but you look at these athletes that professional from professional level, and they come back. So Aaron Rodgers coming back from an Achilles tear, so quickly.
Right. Yeah. That's and that's just because Detroit's been doing so much better. I compare it to them a lot. Like, we're not all pro athletes, but I don't want to say there's no reason we can't be, but there's no reason we can not strive to be as strong as them.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to be doing the 5 million hours of training a day or whatever that they do. But you can get back to better than you were before.
I know that, and I'm living that. And at 45, I'm so much faster than I've ever been. I'm so much more flexible than I've ever been in my whole entire life. Like I can bend in positions that I couldn't when I was in high school,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And as a result, I can play from an athletic competition standpoint with people half my age. You know, I was playing, and I love it because I get to play with my son. Like he's going to be 17 in April, but like, you know, he comes and plays with me, and it's like grown men. And, but I was on Saturday playing with the kid, and he's like 22, 23 years old, and like 6'4", and he's super athletic, and I shut him down.
Yeah.
And like, not only did I shut him down, but the kid's breathing hard. And I told my son on the way home, like, it makes me feel so good.
See? Yeah.
Being 45 and like this kid's like struggling, like breathing hard.
Yeah.
You know, like that's awesome. But I wouldn't be able to, when I started playing basketball, I was not working out like that. I was not taking care of my body, and I'd go and try to do the same things I'm doing now. I'd try to run as hard as I could, and then I'd wake up and I'd feel it.
Right.
I'd feel like I was 40. Or whatever I was.
Right.
Then.
Whatever you were, yeah.
I feel like I was older than that.
Right.
You know, I'd have to come home and take a nap.
Yeah.
You know, now it's just it's different energy. I don't wake up sore. I could go play again, you know, that kind of thing. But it's the work that I put in to do that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I always go back to when I was in grad school, I was probably in the best shape that I had been in, just because I went to Florida for grad school, so I was away from family. My friends were all people in school with me, so we basically worked out, studied, and that was our life. But I remember I volunteered for basically Paralympics or just any type of like wheelchair sport, and I had all these paraplegics in wheelchairs, and I was technically the referee or sideline person for rugby. So I'm watching these guys play rugby in wheelchairs. Yeah. And they're like, hey, Kelly, we have an extra chair. Do you want to play? And I'm like, you want me to sit in a wheelchair and play rugby? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, no, because I'm watching them like knock each other. They're like falling to the ground in wheelchairs, getting back up, like beating the crap out of each other. I'm like, I want no part of this. Like, you guys will kill me. But they put in the work to still have a meaningful life and be able to participate in what they want to participate in. Yes. And that was one of probably the most eye-opening experiences in school too. And probably one of the factors like leading me to go beyond for the training. But I was like, if these guys can do it, imagine the depression they were in when they had the injury. And like I can almost guarantee they would outplay all of us. Because to push around a chair like that, fall down, get up with just upper body strength is insane.
Yes, so much so. And I love that story because it's like there's somebody out there doing more than us with less.
Right.
With less, you know, physical capabilities, with less opportunities. Somebody out there is making us look bad, you know, from a sense of like they're making it look easy and we're over here struggling, you know? So like, what kind of hope and inspiration is that? You know, it's so awesome. Yeah. But last year I went on a cruise and we were playing, there was a basketball court on the cruise. Mm-hmm. So me and my son were on the basketball court quite a bit, but it was hot. Like we're in the middle of the ocean, right? And it's hot. And it was April and it was like 100 degrees, humidity, all that kind of stuff. And we're playing and there was this lady that came, like she was out on the court and she was in a wheelchair. And like, I was talking to her and like nobody was letting her play because she was in a wheelchair. So nobody was like picking her to play on their team and stuff. So I'm like, Jax, we formed a 3-on-3 team with her. And this lady's like hustling, right? Like, first off, I'm like, we're going to set pick and roll. So like, we're going to set some mean screens with the wheelchair. It worked out. But I said to Jackson afterwards, was like, I'm exhausted. Like I'm running all over the court exhausted. Can you imagine the strength and the ability that she had to have in that wheelchair to be back and forth all over that court, the same speed we are? Yeah,
it's crazy. I do at a independent living facility, I run like a modified pickleball. And that's awesome. One of my patients, unfortunately, he just passed away, but before the holidays, but his caregivers would take him next door, which had an outdoor pickleball court. And at first everyone there would just like, oh, like, hi, let him like watch. And then as they went more and more and saw him practicing with his caregiver, they're like, sure, put him on the court. And he would fire some shots. He did my pickleball in the building. And everyone was afraid of him because he's in a wheelchair, but he wasn't really verbal, but he could fire some shots. So depending what you want to be good at, you can get there.
I just think it was like the quality of life for him, at the end of his life, like he could be sitting and doing nothing, or he could be firing some pickleball shots and like getting some enjoyment out of it.
Up until like a week before he passed, his caregivers were awesome. They had him boxing, they had him playing pickleball, all in a wheelchair, but he's still getting things done.
I mean, again, life doesn't have to be over.
Right.
No matter what, life doesn't have to be over.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And there's people like you that allow people to continue moving.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of times I'm just like, just like make this one change, thinking like, it's an easy fix. But it's just things from my training that I know that not everyone knows.
And it's like, as entrepreneurs, as difference makers, there's so many times we go out there and we have this common knowledge that we think that just everybody knows.
Right.
And they don't.
And they don't. Yeah. Yeah. I had a coworker tell me, how exhausted a family member was going through like cancer treatment. And I was like, well, yeah, it's like cancer related fatigue. Like just if you go out and make them walk for 30 minutes a day or every other day, like you'll see the energy levels go up. And in my head, I was like, yeah, she knows that. And she's like, what, really? And I was like, oh yeah, just go for walks.
Yeah.
So.
Because they don't.
Yeah.
I didn't know that when you told me that.
Right. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot more. I was like, oh, you're right. That isn't common sense.
And somebody would think like really the quite opposite. Like if you go for a walk that it's going to take your energy,
right.
They probably like do the opposite of like, just go rest.
That's true.
Don't.
Right. That's true.
Don't expel your energy.
I was kind of, even this weekend, I had the laziest weekend I've had in a long time. I was so tired. But I was like, really, if you go home and sit around for 3 days and don't do anything, tell me how you feel after 3 days. We'll see that we're more tired. So it's just like the same thing. They're laying there during treatment. No duh. Once we actually try it ourselves, then we're like, oh yeah, you do get more tired. Yep.
My mom had a couple years ago got COVID and is diabetic, and it hit her really, really hard. Yeah. But I think a couple things that made it carry on for even longer was that she was in bed the whole entire time and wasn't getting out and was like, I'm not feeling any better. It's like, because you've been in bed the whole entire time,
right?
And you're not eating and you're diabetic, and there's all the kinds of things that tie into that. But
yeah, I haven't looked at it recently. So I'll be honest, this was a research back in like 2012, 2013, but and I'm sure it's the same or worse at this point. But they show for every day that you're laying around, or the study was people in the hospital, but for every day you're in a hospital bed and you're not moving, you lose 4 days of strength. So if someone's in the hospital for a month and they're coming to me complaining that they're not better, I'm like, you got 4 months till you get back to whatever you were before you went in the hospital, which I'm assuming is pretty weak.
Yep.
And then we got to build up past that. So kind of same thing with us laying around. Every day you lay around, you lose X amount of, it's probably not as severe, but X amount of days.
Well, and I think what you even like, you being there, like having the knowledge that you have, I think even adds hope, because I think as humans, we're willing to endure stuff if we know that there's a outcome at the end of it.
Right.
You're willing to put in the work knowing that, okay, I'm 4 weeks behind. That's natural.
Right.
But if I'm in my head and you're not around telling me that thing that I don't know,
right. That's true.
I feel bad.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah. I always try and tell everyone that fact, or like surgery. Most surgeries take a year to heal from. So you might be 80% within 3 to 4 months, all dependent on the surgery. Could be sooner, could be later. But you're really not back to your full potential until about 12 months after surgery, just because of the body's natural healing process. That's one fact that I've told a lot of people, that I've seen them like calm down and not be as frustrated with themselves about, because I can expedite your healing, but the body's natural healing response has its own time.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. It's crazy how, again, we're all so different.
Right. Exactly.
You'd mentioned cancer a little bit ago. I know this is one of the things that we talked about, is when people are like, you don't understand.
Right. Yeah. So I get that a lot. It's funny. After we talked about that, I went into this guy's room and he's like, it's not going to be a very Merry Christmas. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm sorry. And he's like, you don't get it. You'll never understand. And at that point, I was just like, he was not happy. So I was like, okay, you're right. Like, have the best Christmas you can.
Yeah.
He was just one that angry, mad. So I was like, I'm not going to press him any further. But yes, to the story you're getting at, my mom battled cancer for 10 years. Knock on wood. She's been in remission for over 5 now.
So awesome.
But she went to the doctor the day before Christmas Eve. So it was 16 years ago on the 23rd, we figured out. Found out she had a mass. We didn't know if it was cancer. Was having surgery on the 26th. So that kind of put a damper on our whole Christmas.
No kidding. Yeah.
She had to be home by a certain time on Christmas Day to start the prep for it.
Probably couldn't eat at a certain time.
Right.
All that,
And it was ovarian cancer, so she had to clear bowels and everything, I think. But yeah, the eating for sure. Done had surgery on the 26th, and we found out it was malignant. So she went through multiple rounds of chemo, multiple rounds of radiation, 4 surgeries, I think, total. Had some of her intestine taken out at some point. It was like coming back every year or two for 10 years. So when a lot of people, or like that guy, I was like, actually, I know what it's like to have a stressful Christmas or not understand. I've had her plus other family members with it and things like that. So I definitely can resonate with feelings similar to it.
I think it's so important. And again, it's like I've mentioned a couple of times, but it's like the experiences that we go through.
Right.
You know, when I share like my childhood and like experiences, and I don't know if we've even talked about my childhood or anything, but when I share that kind of stuff, oftentimes people will be like, "Oh, I'm sorry you went through that," or "I'm sorry that happened to you." And it's like, for me, I'm not like if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be right here. I wouldn't, you know, like I wouldn't be the person that I am. Like a lot of my gifts are that I have that empathy.
Right.
You know, I can put myself in other people's shoes because of the things that have happened to me. It's been the result of it. Right. It's the gifts that I get from it. And I think that even as entrepreneurs, as driven people, from all that standpoint, it's a lot of our traumas that have like caused the fuel to become who we are.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like we go through that, and you know, to be able to help other people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, going through those 10 years, it was a little bit of everything. Like I had to take her to chemo sometimes. If my dad needed to go to work, or I tried to just help with going so he could go to work. But in the beginning, like people would call, ask how she was doing. She didn't want to talk to anyone. She didn't want to talk about it. And then as we got further in, then she was like more open, more optimistic, talking about it. We went through everything from the anti-cancer diet, eating all sorts of weird foods. To one point, she was on the phone, and my dad and I snuck potato chips into like a casserole because we're like, what is this? We needed a little extra flavor. So yeah, kind of all the roads from like denial, anger to just accepting, and you have to have a positive outlook and keep pushing forward. She was amazing. She worked through all her treatments. She would time it. So like the day of treatment, the days she felt bad were the weekends, and then she'd just go right back to work.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty, she definitely is one of the strongest role models in my life. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Again, it's those experiences that shape us.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that led me to have more, like you said, sympathy, empathy, and just understand a little bit more like how any event, stroke, cancer, injury can kind of be a life-changing thing for people and their families.
We never know what people are going through.
Right.
You know, and it's even like when you get somebody that's like crabby or like they're a jerk or whatever, you have no idea what's going on in their life. And so it's one of those reminders, you know, a lot of times, like having grace with people. Right.
Exactly. I had like just a handful of my current or patients I've recently discharged. Like one lost their spouse on the 20th of December, right before the holidays. One, it was their first Christmas as like divorced, only having their kids 50%. One was celebrating Christmas and couldn't have kids and lives with that every year.
Yeah.
Another one had their spouse in the hospital, who I actually found out passed away on Christmas. So like, and these are just people that are willing to share, not even people that we don't know what they're going through.
Yep.
So I think I made a post like, after learning all this in just 3 days, like, be nice to people.
Yeah.
It's a stressful time. I get it, but you never know what's going on.
You never know. And we have the ability to change and impact somebody's day with something as simple as a smile.
Right. Exactly.
They're just acknowledging it.
Right.
Really listening to somebody.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You never know.
You never know. Kelly, this has been such an awesome conversation.
Yes,
I really
thank
appreciate you coming down, especially like we were able to fill the gap last minute.
Right.
I
Yes.
texted you on Friday, like, can you move up?
Right. I know. I looked at my schedule. I'm like, it's open. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm
So-
glad it worked out.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's been fun.
It's been fun. Thank you so much.
Of course.